Welcome to part 3. Now let's examine gay characters in Invincible. William is self-absorbed, shallow, and a terrible best friend to Mark, so naturally he's the first flag the writers wave around to show how progressive they are. One of the first things we hear out of his mouth is how hot he thinks Omni-Man is, which establishes one of William's main personality traits, going on and on and on about how hot guys are, especially Rick. Now, if William was straight and talked that way about women, well... Like Amber, there's nothing remarkable about William's personality other than shoving into our faces that he's gay, which is not surprising since the writers love to shove in our faces how strong and selfless Amber was without giving her any real depth. But again, like Amber, if William did have any depth, it would be both toxic and abusive. For one thing, he can't take anything seriously. Even when Mark tells him his father is in the hospital, William can't resist sneaking in a few cracks while offering support. His obsession with both him and Mark getting partners gets very annoying very fast since William doesn't seem to give a shit about what Mark really wants. When Amber asks him and not Mark himself if Mark is dating Eve, William scoffs, "I wish." Amber gives him a death glare, which of course isn't a red flag to William since Amber is hot and that's all that matters, and doesn't hesitate to give her Mark's phone number. He also doesn't hesitate to put Mark down in a way that's obviously supposed to be taken as a joke. He doesn't believe Mark has a chance with Eve since Eve is amazing and Mark is basic. When Mark protests that Eve already has a boyfriend, William says, "So what? You can be more awesome than him and take his place. That's how dating works." So dating is just a game for him, is it? Including the people involved? When Mark refuses to play homewrecker and leaves, William yells after him that he'll be alone forever because he won't treat people like dating objects. It's unsurprising that William turns out to be a complete hypocrite. When D.A. Sinclair makes a few comments about Rick being a strong, assertive alpha male, William loses his shit and acts like he's trying to make a move on Rick. But that's not the end of William's hypocrisy. Oh no. The second time Todd goes after Mark, William just backs away, like, "I'm not involved in this. Mark's just my best friend. Like hell I'm gonna get beat up on his behalf." A hot, sexy boyfriend, on the other hand, is absolutely worth getting beat up over, even killed over. As if it wasn't disgusting enough that William spent the entire ride to university going on and on about how hot Rick is along with ogling his ass, it turns out that's the only thing that matters in their relationship when they're about to be killed by D.A. Sinclair. They had sex by the water. It was the best thing that ever happened to him. No profound emotional bond, because that sure as shit isn't life-changing. Just the sex was life-changing, because the only thing that matters to a gay guy is sex, right? It certainly matters more than the well-being of his best friend. When Amber breaks up with him, he does not give a shit that Mark risked his life to save theirs. He does not give a shit how distressed Mark is. All he cares about is that Mark is a superhero. And don't tell me he tries to assure him Amber will forgive him because he then sinks to Amber depths by chastising Mark for never telling his best friend his secret identity. I mean, William only blurts it out twice, once when he finds out and twice to Eve, but Eve is a superhero too, so all's well that ends well. And William's the gay comic relief, so he can be forgiven for anything. Then William sinks even lower than Amber by blackmailing Mark. "Take me flying or I'll tell everyone your secret identity. Sorry, not sorry." Come on, guys, he's just joking. Can't you take a joke? What's worse is that Mark gives in, not in the way William wanted, but still. Kind of like if you win the lottery and all of a sudden your family and friends only care about what you can give them, and you better give simply because you can. When Rick goes out to buy beer and pizza, he calls William and asks if everything is okay with the lovebirds. William tells Rick that Mark's pretty wrung out and should be given space. Oh wait, I'm sorry, that's what a real friend would do. Instead, he gleefully shows a depressed Mark on his phone to Rick, who laughs and says, "Yikes." For the record, toxic friends may seem to support you on the surface, but you'll notice they take pleasure in your misfortunes. It's for this reason I don't really blame Mark for not taking William seriously when his call to Rick gets cut off. William panics and tells Mark something's happened to Rick and they need to go look for him. I mean, he's only spent the last several hours mocking and abusing Mark, but remember, Mark is just his best friend, not a hot, sexy boyfriend. Mark goes after Amber but does tell William to call him if Rick doesn't turn up soon. And what does William do? He goes off on his own. When he finds Rick's broken phone and a trail of crushed beer leading into a sewer, he doesn't call Mark. He goes in there right away, even calling for Rick like an idiot. Rick has been kidnapped by a cyborg that gave Invincible a run for his money, and William waits to call Mark until he's literally being dragged off to Sinclair's lab. So then Mark has to waste even more time searching the area when William could have called him when he found Rick's broken phone, like Mark told him to do. Naturally, William later blames Mark for everything. Maybe if you weren't such an abusive piece of shit, he would have taken you more seriously. Even when Mark is being beaten to death by the Reanimen, William can't resist smiling wistfully when he remembers sex with Rick. And even after Mark nearly gets beaten to death, there's no sympathy from William regarding the Amber situation. Even after he assured him Amber would forgive him, which she didn't, he blames Mark for everything. You were a terrible boyfriend to Amber and you got what you deserved. Sorry, not sorry. That couldn't be further from the truth, but I'm not going into an Amber rant right now. According to William, Mark has no right to complain because he has superpowers and superpowers fix everything. Even though Mark was almost killed by the Reanimen too. Yes, one of my favorite things to do in these essays is call out superhero privilege, but I have never implied what William is implying, that having superpowers means having no problems. Just ask the dead guardians of the globe. Oh wait, you can't. So Mark should just stop whining because William's suffering a lot more than Mark. He says that if he can stand almost losing the hottest guy he's ever met, Mark can survive this, because physical attractiveness and sex are what really matters. In this case, William reminds me a bit of Tyrion Lannister from the A Song of Ice and Fire novels. Physically unremarkable and a terrible person at heart, but absolutely obsessed and even feeling entitled to an attractive lover. Note I said lover, not partner, because no matter how much the writers tried to convince us otherwise in Season 2, they've already established that William only likes Rick because he's hot. If Rick looked any less hot on the outside after recovering in a GDA hospital, William would have found some excuse to dump him. That is, if the writers were actually aware of how they really wrote him. But given how self-aware they were with Season 1 Amber, I'm not going to give them the benefit of the doubt. Unlike Amber, William doesn't improve in Season 2. When Nualzad appears and asks Mark to come away with him to another galaxy, William guilt-trips him into going. Never mind that Nualzad could be leading him into a trap. It's Mark's fault that William almost lost his hot, sexy boyfriend, and Mark still needs to pay for that. Don't get me wrong, William absolutely belongs in the Grayson family since they've all sold their families out for sex. William was just upfront about it right from the start, but he is terrible gay representation. His attitude seems to be, I'm gay so you can't call me out for how annoying, callous, and shallow I am because then you're homophobic. A Redditor summed up his quote-unquote friendship with Mark perfectly. I can say, do, or demand anything I want from you, and you'll do it, otherwise you won't have me anymore, and I'm all you've got. Rick is better than William, but there was a deal-breaker moment for me with him. In Season 3, when Mark informs him and William that Sinclair is in fact not in prison but working for the GDA, Mark wonders aloud if he should have just killed him. Rick and William assure him no, he shouldn't have, with Rick even saying, if you killed him, you would be just like him. Really? Then let me ask you this, Rick. Hypothetical scenario. Mark kills Sinclair, and then Rick is kidnapped by another mad scientist exactly like Sinclair. I guess you wouldn't call Mark to rescue you since, there's no difference between him and Sinclair now, right? Because there's no difference between killing someone like Sinclair and kidnapping and torturing innocent people, right? There's no difference between Mark and someone who put a power razor to your boyfriend's arm out of pure sadism. So I guess if I kill a pedophile, I'm exactly like that pedophile then. This is why I will always take characters like Cecil over characters like Mark. Characters like Cecil will kill to protect innocence. Characters like Mark will use innocence as a blood sacrifice to their self-righteousness. Characters like Cecil care about the consequences of violence and killing. Characters like Mark and Rick only care about how it makes them look. There is one more thing I'd like to mention about Rick. William and Mark were still 17 at the end of Season 1, yet Rick was old enough to legally buy alcohol, so he's at least 21. And he and William had sex the year before. Yeah, the math does not look good there. Fortunately, all is not lost for gay representation in Invincible, because we still have, drumroll please, Magmaniac and Tether Tyrant. Not a single word heard, and yet it could not be more perfect. This is how you do representation, Invincible. No self-righteousness, no toxic liberalism, just pure humanity. Invincible, you are finally progressive. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for Part 4, where I discuss white supremacy in Invincible.